when you evaluate a patient with a posterior hip dislocation, you must assess something beyond simple reducing of the hip. That is, to address three critical sequential factors. Number one, femoral head. Roughly 10 to 15% of patients with a posterior hip dislocation will also have a fracture of the femoral head. This occurs because the femoral head, driven posteriorly, directly impacts the hard, bony posterior rim of the acetabulum, which results in a femoral head fracture. Number two, sciatic nerve, which is highly vulnerable during a posterior hip dislocation. Three, the knee examination, because most of these injuries result from a dashboard impact, that is, the force which was applied to the knee while the hip is flexed. In these cases, the force travels through the leg and causes injuries which are distal to the hip. A frequently overlooked injury is the knee's posterior cruciate ligament, PCL. The same posterior directed force that dislocates the hip can continue to drive the tibia backwards on the femur, which leads to a PCL tear. For understanding Pipkin's classification, the most important structure undoubtedly is the fovea capitis. What is the fovea capitis? The fovea capitis is a central depression on the femoral head where the ligamentum teres attaches. Now, this attachment area roughly corresponds to the non-weight bearing part of the femoral head. Let's look into this slightly deeper. See, we all know that the femoral head is shaped like roughly two-thirds of a sphere. The dome, which is the superior quadrant of the sphere, is the primary weight-bearing region. Although the entire surface of femoral head is covered with articular cartilage, the thickest cartilage is present over the weight-bearing dome as it endures maximum load. The part which is below the fovea capitis does not come into contact with the acetabulum during normal standing and normal walking. Therefore, that part is considered the non-weight bearing part. Now, if there is any fracture which involves the weight bearing dome, even as small as 2 mm, it can drastically alter the load distribution across the hip joint. Now, this would result in what? Concentrated abnormal stress on the cartilage, which leads to a rapid wear and tear, finally, which leads to cartilage breakdown, post traumatic osteoarthritis, and a chronic pain. The role of ligamentum teres is often undermined. Why? Because it acts as a secondary stabilizer, particularly at the extremes of hip motion, where it functions like a check rein. Therefore, when you see an avulsion fracture of the ligamentum teres, it is highly suggestive that this was a high energy trauma, where the hip has undergone extreme ranges of movement. From our previous videos, we know that the medial circumflex femoral artery is the major blood supply of the femoral head, especially the critical weight bearing portion. The other vessel is the foveal vessels, which travel through the ligamentum teres. Now, this acts as a secondary or salvage blood supply, particularly in cases where there is a neck of femur fracture. So, in cases where you encounter a displaced neck of femur fracture, along with complete shearing of the foveal fragment, it would indicate extremely high chances that the entire blood supply to the femoral head has been lost. In such cases, the femoral head will become a necrotic piece of bone, which is avascular necrosis of the femoral head. Since a dead bone cannot support any body weight, it leads to collapse of the femoral head, after which there is only one definite solution, that is, replacing the head through arthroplasty. Pipkin's classification. It consists of 4 types. Type 1 and type 2 are based on the location of the fracture in relation to the fovea capitis, and type 3 and type 4 are based on the combination of either type 1 or type 2 with other fractures. In type 1, the fracture fragment lies inferior to the fovea capitis. It is generally a small chip fracture or a small fragment. Now, since this area is the non-weight bearing part, a type 1 fracture has the best prognosis. Type 2 The fracture fragment lies superior to the fovea capitis. Now, this is usually a large fragment since it involves the weight bearing dome. Even a 2 mm step off can lead to post traumatic osteoarthritis due to altered joint mechanics. Type 3 fractures. When a type 1 or a type 2 happens along with a neck or femur fracture. Now, these fractures are the rarest. A very important word of caution. If you ever suspect that there is a neck or femur fracture along with dislocation of the hip, never attempt to reduce the hip, as this might be an undisplaced neck or femur fracture. And when you attempt reduction, you might convert an undisplaced neck or femur fracture into a displaced one, which will again exponentially increase the complications, as we have already discussed in the previous videos. Type 4 fractures. Now, type 4 fractures involve a type 1 or type 2 femoral head fracture with an associated acetabular fracture. Typically, this will involve the posterior rim of acetabulum. Since the ball and socket joint itself is completely disrupted, this is an unstable fracture pattern. And this is by far the most complex injury in Pipkin's classification. Pipkin's classification is one of the most logical classification by far because each type actually guides you how to manage it further. Let us look at an overall aim of management in femoral head fractures. The primary aim is to do an early reduction of the dislocation. Now, it is strongly advised that the hip must be reduced within 6 hours. After reduction, you will assess Pipkin's classification because that would guide treatment pathway even further. Again, since we know that these are high energy injuries and associated injuries are also very common, most of these patients would be sent for a CT scan so that we understand the complete fracture mapping and we can plan further. So you will look at the type of Pipkin fracture, you will focus on preserving the articular surface, and you will address all the associated injuries. In a type 1 fracture, the core problem is the loose fragment. The logic behind management of a type 1 fracture is the fragment will either be small or it will be big. Now, if it is small, you can remove it arthroscopically, or some surgeons prefer to leave the chip as it is. The only drawback is that in the long term, it can damage the joint. If it is a big or a large fragment which is creating a block to movement, you need to fix it with a headless compression screw like the Herbert screw. The approach is even more logical. The fragment is displaced anterior-inferiorly. So the approach which you'll use is the anterior or Smith-Peterson approach. In type 2 fractures, it is the superior weight-bearing fragment which is the core problem. Here, the critical weight-bearing dome is impacted. Even a 2 mm step off can create huge problems. The gold standard is that you have to do an anatomical reduction and internal fixation to restore the critical weight bearing surface. Fixation again can be done with multiple screws, 2 or more for that matter. The approach here will be based on the fact that we need to reduce it anatomically. So we need a 360-degree or complete visualization of the femoral head, which is by far best achieved with a Gans safe surgical dislocation technique to expose the hip, which is followed by fixation. In type 3 fractures, you know that the core problem here will be the neck or femur fracture. And the complication we are dreading here is AVN, because there is generally complete loss of blood supply. The management logic here is decided by the neck or femur fracture. And the same surgical algorithm which we applied in neck or femur fractures will be applied here. That is, in younger, you fix, in older, you replace. The approach for fixation will be the Gans safe surgical dislocation because we need to generally expose the whole femoral head, just like a type 2 fracture. Generally, first we fix the head with necessary screws and followed by managing the neck or femur fractures. So in the young patient, you would generally fix the femoral head and then do necessary management of the neck or femur fractures. In the older patients, you obviously go for arthroplasty. In a type 4 fracture, the core problem is that it is a very complicated type. To restore the joint stability, you will simultaneously fix both the femoral head and the fractured posterior acetabular rib. Generally, it starts off with a lag screw to compress the acetabular fragments anatomically, and then the acetabular plates and screws, specifically the pre-contoured or the malleable small fragment plates, the 3.5 plates, are fixed to the intact portion of the posterior column to buttress the posterior wall fragment. Here the approach is the Cocker-Langenman approach. Often we use the modified Cocker-Langenman approach. Here there is a high need to expose the posterior acetabulum since we need to fix that part for complete stability. The modification is that it generally will include a trochanteric osteotomy, which is similar to the one done in GANS for better visualization of the femoral head component also. Let's break down each classification system the logical way so that we don't have to rely on mugging up these systems. See you next time with intertrochanteric fractures.